Hello and welcome to the fourth edition of the Sidelines Pass podcast. My name is Peter Benson, your host. I'm joined by Mahir Panja and Fons Yap to discuss yet more soccer-related stuff, starting with the Premier League. So we'll just jump straight in and go straight in with the Premier League. It's been one of these bizarre seasons. Leicester, after narrowly avoiding relegation last year, now top of the league by 2 points, although a blow at the weekend could see them fall down the table, but we'll let the boys discuss that. Um, so they've split points with every other potential title contender thus far, apart from Arsenal, who they've lost to now twice. Still look like the most consistent team in the league. So to both of you, I'm just going to ask, can they do the unthinkable and actually win the title, or do you see another team kind of jumping ahead of them in the last 12 games?
I mean, this is the Cinderella season that I think everybody is more or less cheering for, unless you're a Tottenham or Arsenal fan. You kind of want Leicester to win. They have these guys who, they brought in for really chump change, and are now just like completely taking over the league. So, I mean, I don't think they're gonna make it. Like, I think Arsenal will come back and win, but I mean, this is already an accomplishment to be top of the table at this point in the season for a team like Leicester, as you said, bottom of the league last year, and really just came out of nowhere. You have Vardy, you have Mahrez, all these guys who are now superstars. Like, who would have thought? Nobody predicted this. There's like one guy who predicted it at the beginning of the season. He's going to be rich, but yeah, I really don't think they'll be able to pull it off because they have a really difficult slate of games towards the end of the season.
Well, just to go off of that, I predicted Man United, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But no, Leicester City has had an amazing season, like you said. The Cinderella story is one of the reasons that they could pull it off because all of the neutral supporters, like you said, besides Tottenham and Arsenal, are kind of pulling for them. Another reason is they have 12 games left. They know exactly who they're going to play, and they can probably pull through. Arsenal, Tottenham, they all have European contention still left to go. But Leicester, they have absolutely nothing else going on for them except for Premier League, and that kind of helps them out. And they don't have to play every 3 days, every 4 days, and that really helps out physically and mentally for players like Vardy and Mahrez and all of them. So yeah, I think there's a potential that they could pull through. But if there is somebody that could knock them down, I think that could be Tottenham.
Well, it's funny you should mention Tottenham here because that's kind of where we're going to go next with this because they are the closest people to Leicester, closest team, sorry, I should say, to Leicester after beating City at the weekend. They're actually, season is quite a big surprise, having been out of the Champions League spots for quite a few years. All of their big spending in kind of previous years seem to be somewhat paying off. And Pochettino, like he did at Southampton, like he was told to do at Southampton, has kind of brought in quite a lot of their youth players. So, who do you see as kind of the biggest contributing factor to Spurs' newfound success? Their manager, perhaps maybe an individual player or two that you think has kind of really helped Tottenham step up their game in the last few weeks, in the last season.
I mean, Pochettino's fantastic. Like, he's been such a great coach for Southampton and now for Tottenham. But I really think it's just like, I mean, just the strength of these young guys. I mean, I think I read today, Tottenham have arguably the youngest team in the league. Like, they have one guy over 30, and that's Vorm, who's a goalkeeper who barely plays. You have all these young guys, the Kanes, the Alis, who are just, they don't care. These are big games against the big opponents. Against Manchester City, and just like, well, we're gonna go out there and win the game. Ericsson comes in and scores the goal. Lamella assisted. All these little things that they're doing so well. And so I think Pochettino has a ton to do with it. Coaching these guys well. Allowing them to grow, allowing them to really shine in the system. But I think it's the players are really just taking it and seeing their opportunity and just like, we're gonna do it. We're gonna win. And I mean, I think they're the most consistent team in the league right now. They haven't lost in a while. Um, yeah, they haven't lost in February, and I think by far the most consistent team, but I still don't think they have just the right enough experience to pull it off.
Yeah, I think Pochettino, like you said, has been a great coach this year. And I think the biggest thing that he's focused on is playing as a team. Um, because Tottenham for the last few years, they've gotten to the top four, but they had one superstar kind of doing all the work. Last year was Harry Kane. A few years ago was Gareth Bale. Obviously, they got rid of him, but it was there was no team play. There was no team element. I mean, they had big names coming in like Eric Lamela and Ericsson and all of them, but there was no team play, and I think that's what Pochettino really brings to the table. And obviously, Del Ali, he's been one of the biggest names to go off this season. And it's a young talent, and if they hold on to him, they don't sell him, then he can go far away. But I mean, I think they could win the league if Leicester does slip, but at the end of the day, I don't see Leicester slipping.
That's interesting from both of you actually talking about kind of elements beyond the players and the manager. With Fons, you dealing with confidence, and here you dealing with kind of the teamwork, and it's maybe something that you kind of don't notice, and it can't really be attributed to one thing. So quite an interesting take on that from both of you there. So let's move forward to the rest of the top four. Obviously, City are sitting in fourth just now, just after that loss to Tottenham, but they're still 6 points clear of the fifth position, which is Manchester United. Do you guys see any of the next four in the table, the better teams of the league, the United, Southampton, West Ham, or even Liverpool, making a run at the Champions League places, or is the top four now set?
I mean, as much as I want to say Liverpool can make a run now that big boys are back, I really don't think it's going to change. United, they're good. They had a few good weeks, but losing to Sunderland's unacceptable. And there just seems to be like something like Van Gaal. Like I don't know if he's just not connecting with the players, or there's some back talk, behind the scenes talk about bringing Mourinho in. So that I don't think that team United are settled enough to really mount a challenge to City. And City, like even though they're not going to be the champions this year, I think Pellegrini still wants to make sure that I guess his legacy is solid with more or less consistent top four finishes every single year he's been there. And I think there's just too much talent on City to really fall apart these last few weeks. I really don't think they'll just give up on him because he's leaving. I think they'll want to play for a guy who's brought them a lot of trophies, even though they didn't win the Champions League.
Yeah, I think I agree with Fonz on Arsenal and Man City kind of holding on to the third and fourth spot. Because, like you said, Pellegrini has been a great coach, and the players, of that caliber don't just give up just because they know that the coach is going to leave. They definitely, they have that 6 points going for them, so I don't see them slipping that much. As for the rest of the pack, I do actually see Liverpool coming up to the fifth spot, and yeah, that's for Fonz right there. Because Man United can't put in a solid performance, and every time they do, it's never consistent enough to back it up. So I don't see them staying in the top five even. So yeah, I think Liverpool definitely with Klopp and all the players coming back from injury can pull off into the fifth spot, but no further than that.
No, that's fair. So just as a quick follow-up to that, neither of you see, obviously you've said that Leicester will hold on here. Fons, you aren't so sure, but Fons, you also mentioned kind of Tottenham's inexperience becoming a problem. You don't see either of them maybe slipping down the table, and United or Liverpool or even Southampton or West Ham kind of sneaking up above them if they were to kind of collapse towards the end of the year?
No, I don't think so. I think we've all doubted Leicester enough. Every single time they've had a big game where it's like, who knows? This is the opportunity for them to slip up, and they really haven't. It took Arsenal a last second Welbeck goal to really win, and that was there's a lot of luck because I forget who the Leicester player was, but he didn't have to foul Arsenal in that situation, and it took a really, really, really good free kick from Ozil to get that goal. So I don't think anybody else. Yeah, it's Arsenal, Leicester, Tottenham, City, all those guys. They're gonna be the top four. I think it's pretty set already.
I would also add Leicester were down to 10 men at that point. Just
That's a fair point. So now to the other end of the table, it's kind of getting to crunch time this year. There's always a relegation battle going on in the Premier League. It seems like it's perennially going on, even in August when the season just starts. It's not quite like last year where any of the bottom 10 could have gone down, but right now Chelsea sitting 12th, 9 points separate them in the relegation zone. So let's ignore Aston Villa just now. That trouncing by Liverpool at the weekend has pretty much sealed their fate. I mean, there's quite a big gap for them to overcome. So who would you say that the other two teams, unless, I doubt it, but Aston Villa coming back from 8-point deficit at this time of the year is not going to be good. But who are the other two teams who you guys see going down with Aston Villa?
I've got Norwich and Sunderland. I mean, the order doesn't really matter, but I think Newcastle will be able to escape this year, even though right now they are they're 18th and they lost 5-1 to Chelsea. But I think they have a little too much talent. They brought in a couple of players in a transfer window. They got Shelby, who is still he's a pretty great player, even though he's not world class guy. He can still contribute a lot of things, and I think the fans won't allow them to do it. Newcastle fans are famous for being, they kind of stick by the team even though their ownership is kind of terrible. And I think the players won't want to disappoint their fans by, spending a season down in the championship, even though talent-wise they are. I honestly think like a decent Premier League team. It's just that there's so many factors working against them.
yeah, I actually have the same two going out, Norwich and Sunderland. Because like you said, Newcastle does have a lot of talent, but at the same time, Norwich, their schedule is very, very hard. I believe they play all the top four teams. I'm not so sure about Tottenham, but I know for a fact they play Man City, Arsenal, and Leicester. So, just out of the 12 games that are left, you drop 9, 12 points right there, it's over. And as for Sunderland, they've had absolutely no luck except for against Man United. But I don't see them getting out of the relegation zone either.
That's fair. Yeah, you were right, mate, here as well, that Norwich don't play Tottenham, but they do play the other three, as well as Chelsea, if they really count, this season. That's really the Premier League discussion that we need to have. Some interesting points made. Obviously, it seems like you're both kind of pretty much in agreement with the teams that are going down. Just a quick kind of wrap up on that, just to ask about before we get off the Premier League. You don't see somebody like Bournemouth kind of collapsing. Bournemouth are only sitting 4 points above the relegation zone, obviously newly promoted team, or do you think that their goal's just going to keep them up and Eddie Howe is going to keep them up?
Yeah, I think they're gonna. I think it's less that they're gonna stay up and more that the others are gonna fail to stay up. I think Norwich, their current form is lose, draw. So they really haven't put in any effort to win, even though they had that 4-5 loss to Liverpool, which is kind of a heartbreaker for them. But yeah, I think Bournemouth, they're 15th now. I think Bournemouth and Swansea, I think they're gonna stay up just based on the fact that the others are going to really suck.
Right, and I concur. There's just no way that Norwich can get out from that schedule, especially playing those big teams. And like you said, Aston Villa is way in the dumps there. So there's only one spot left, and that whoever the lucky winner is there, kind of is up for debate, but I see Sunderland taking that last spot.
Okay, that's fair enough arguments. That's kind of where I would have went with this. So that's perfect. So let's move away from England just now, not completely, but let's move kind of onto the continent and let's talk Champions League. So the Champions League knockout stages, arguably the best collection of soccer teams in the world, just about to meet off, just about to face off against each other tomorrow night. So we thought we'd kind of delve into couple of key matchups and predict all of the ties going forward, with the first fixtures being this week, and then in a couple of weeks' time after those fixtures, the return legs will be played. So let's start with the kind of marquee matchup of the round of 16. So two semi-finalists last year, Juventus and Bayern. Bayern kind of got through Group F with only a single loss to Arsenal in a game that Arsenal had to have, so it's kind of understandable, but won all 5 of their other games. Juventus, on the other hand, slipped behind Manchester City to allow City to win their first group since they kind of became regular entrants of the competition. Which players, first of all, guys, do you see kind of deciding this one over 2 legs?
I think for Bayern, it will. I don't think it's necessarily a player, but it's more how they'll address losing Bad Stubber. He's, they just lost him this week. He's been a defensive stalwart for them for a few seasons, and I mean, I still think Bayern's gonna win, honestly, but it's just how will they address, keeping this like red hot Juventus team. How they're gonna hold them back, because Dybala has been a revolution, really, coming out of nowhere and being such a great goal scorer for Juve this year. So I think they'll be able to do it, but it might be a little closer than I first thought. And then for Juve, I think, once again, defensively, Manucci will be the key player. I mean, he will be dealing with the goal machine, Lewandowski, and then just behind him you still have Muller and all these other fantastic players for Bayern. So if he's able to, command his teammates in the back, just be like, you deal with Muller, you deal with Robin, I think they'll be able to keep up. But honestly, I don't think Juve has enough talent and enough, defense, honestly, to beat this Bayern team.
I'm actually going to go on the opposite and call for an upset here. I'm going to go with Juventus. I think they can pull it off here. They go into the match, with a miraculous comeback in the Italian league. They started off the year very poorly, and they made it all the way to the top once again. Dybala, like you said, he was a scoring machine. He was playing for, I believe, Torino or somebody in the Italian last year too, and he was leading the league at one point. So he's been scoring so many goals, and obviously you have Paul Pogba, the addition of Cuadrado over the summer. It's a pretty young team, but it's been a good team lately. And as for Bayern, the injury to Bad Stubber is terrible for them, especially because it happened in training. It was upsetting, kind of. Ribery's been hurt for a while, so he's been out. Robin was in some sort of diving controversy in the German Cup. I'm pretty sure he always dives. But and then there was the whole lawsuit on Vidal and his thing, and on top of that, Pep Guardiola was leaving. So they have a lot of things going on right now, off the field and on the field. But I mean, their talent obviously is just amazing. There's so many good players on the team with Thomas Müller, Lewandowski, Douglas Costa, who's been an amazing key player for them all year. So I mean, I think Juventus can pull off, but it will definitely be a very, very close game.
Okay, plenty of players mentioned there. Obviously, star-studded affair. That's why we're talking about it at the top of the show. So you both kind of announced your winners, both gone in a different direction, but I just want to get a quick final score from you over the 2 legs. So Mahir, we'll start with you. What do you think the score will be over 2 legs to Juventus? And then Fons, if you give me your score after.
I'm gonna say 3-2. Very defensive matchup. That's the only way Juventus can win. They cannot outshoot or outscore Bayern.
And I'm going the opposite. I think it's a 5-4 Bayern win. I think, both teams are going to want to score a lot. So, and like both defenses aren't, I mean, they're not at the top of the game. So yeah, I think a 5-4 maybe on away goals win for Bayern is my prediction.
Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. So let's move to the kind of next biggest game. It's still a big game, repeat of last year's round of 16 tie, that amazing tie that went to overtime between Chelsea and Paris Saint-Germain. So PSG have actually started this year unbelievably. The French champions have started this year 22 wins, 4 draws, no losses, are still undefeated in the league and are currently winning by 24 points. So their domestic campaign is all but wrapped up at the moment. Meanwhile, Chelsea, obviously, as we're aware, languishing in 12th of the Premier League, and have been dealt a pretty difficult tie considering they won their group in November. So, I mean, on paper, this game looks like it could be very, very one-sided, especially with the domestic form taken into account. But do either of you think that Chelsea can recapture some of the continental form that got them this far, or are PSG going to prove too much to handle and go through to the round of eight, for the second year in a row?
I mean, I don't think, as much as I hate Chelsea, I really don't think that they're going to make it. I mean, PSG have lost one time the entire year, one single time, and that was to Madrid, and it was 1-0 in Madrid the entire year. Lost one time. It's amazing. So yeah, I think Di Maria and Zlatan, everybody's favorite football player, too much talent, too much attacking power, to deal with this. They'll be able to just destroy Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea, they have this mini resurgence, but I think it's a little too late for them to really get the confidence back, to really believe that they can beat a team like PSG, even though, yeah, like last year there was a little bit of controversy with Zlatan saying like, oh, I felt like I was surrounded by 11 babies. I think it's just that irrational confidence that he has in himself. I think that'll push them through, and I think we might see PSG, get far in this competition.
Yeah, and I agree with him on that one. I mean, Chelsea, they've had some recent success, and it's actually been at home, their most recent success. But unfortunately for them, the first leg is in France. And on top of that, they've lost John Terry to injury, and he was ruled out earlier today for that matchup. So if they can't come out of that first leg, with any kind of goals or any kind of success, then that second leg is already done with. And I mean, yeah, PSG have had their, troubles kind of, not really. But yeah, like you said, they're up 24 points, and they recently had this Aurier controversy where he came out and he was talking all this crap. But, why would you talk crap on Zlatan when he's scoring 21 goals, So it's whatever. But Di Maria, Edison Cavani, all these great players they're just going to be way too much for Chelsea. I don't see them winning.
Okay, so it's both quite clear that you obviously don't see Chelsea kind of getting through this tie. So just again, a quick score from both of you. What do you think will be the score over the two legs once it's all said and done in London in a few weeks' time?
I'll go 4-2 PSG.
Give me the 3-0 PSG. Chelsea can't do it. They can't.
Okay. And kind of the final tie that we're going to talk at length about, another kind of big one, Barcelona, defending champions. Again, for the third year in a row, have managed to end up against Premier League opposition. Will they do it for a third time? I'll let you answer that question in a second. Will they get through to their 9th consecutive quarter-final, which is a ridiculous feat in itself. But do you think, with Arsenal maybe having won in Munich, knowing how to beat the big teams in Europe and I can run them close, are the Gunners kind of or are Arsenal the worst that Barcelona could have faced out of the Premier League opposition just because of the way they play? And do Arsenal have any chance in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I like Arsenal, second favorite. They're my second favorite Premier League team, but like, they don't have any chance of beating Barca. I mean, the MSN, Messi, Suarez, Neymar combo, way too good. Like they are killing everybody right now, and it is kind of depressing watching them play against other teams because it just feel like you can't do anything to stop them. I mean, Arsenal, they're a great team. You know, if they were against a lot of the other teams in this competition, I think they would be able to push through. But like, it's just so unlucky to end up having to play against Barcelona. And I mean, yeah, I think Barca's current form is too good, and actually, I think it's a benefit for Arsenal. You know, they lose now. They lose in the first leg by a couple of goals. They don't need to play in the Champions League anymore. You know, they can focus on the Premier League. So that's unlucky as it is. I think it'll help them in the long run.
It's an interesting way to map it out. I mean, this is very biased coming from me, but yeah, I don't think Arsenal stand a chance. Um, that being said, Barca's defense currently is probably the worst I've ever seen it in my lifetime. So, if Arsenal were to have a chance, it would only be them outscoring MSN, which is much easier said than done. Um, so I mean that's to be honest, that's the only way I see Arsenal, having any kind of chance because that defense right now with, whatever combination Luis Enrique puts in there, it's just very shaky. Even against, lower league teams in La Liga, they've been giving up ridiculous goals. I mean, Claudio Bravo and Ter Stegen have been doing a great job, but they have absolutely no help from the defense. So Arsenal can maybe, get a few goals here and there.
Okay, so Fons was pretty clear in who he was going to pick. I mean, it's obvious who Mahir is going to end up picking, but just with a bit of a score from each of you again, just over the two legs, what's going to be the score between Barcelona and Arsenal?
I'll go 5-1.
Wow, 5-1. Give me I'll take 3-1. I don't think it'll be as big of a slaughter as I said it would be.
Okay, so obviously believing that they have a chance Mahir, but not that they're actually going to score goals. And just to go back to what you said, Fons, not only are Barca destroying people, but they're also taking the piss out of them, as if it for anybody who saw the penalty over the weekend, just to give Suarez his hat trick. You can't say they're not a proper team, that's for sure. So let's move on to kind of the rest of the fixtures. We're not going to go into these in as much detail as the rest of them, but just to give me a score and maybe a quick reason as to why you're picking these scores over the legs. So we'll start with Roma versus Real Madrid. So what do you guys think will happen in that one?
Probably a shootout. Honestly, both teams like to attack, so I think 3-2, maybe.
I
Oh,
mean,
Madrid's gonna win.
Seydou Keita mentioned earlier that it wasn't impossible for Roma to beat Madrid, which is very difficult, but I don't see them winning. I would still say 3-1 Madrid.
3-1 Madrid. So Madrid scoring three almost definitely, but I mean, yeah, it doesn't look like Roma really would have a chance, but it's the sort of tie that we've seen before in the Champions League that could cause some problems for Real. It's not the best, considering they did win their division as well, or sorry, their group, I should say. So let's move to the next biggest tie on the agenda, which would be PSV Atletico Madrid. The Dutch powerhouse have been a good team for a while, but never really comparing to kind of the big four league teams. Atletico this year are splitting the El Clasico teams at the moment, sitting 3 points behind Barcelona. So, what do you guys see happening in this one? Do you see PSV maybe causing an upset, or Atletico going through to another quarter final?
I mean, I think PSV, Atletico's defense is way too good. They're plus 47 in La Liga, which is insane. So I think Atletico wins 2-0.
Um, I believe plus 47. That's Real Madrid. Um, but I actually think PSV will have a pretty good game here, and even though I still pick Atletico, I feel like it could go to penalties in the second leg after going to extra time.
Okay.
Atletico for 3 penalties.
And you're right.
41 penalties. Okay.
Plus 47 is Madrid, so not bad.
Okay. And just to the final Premier League team left in the competition that we've not talked about. So Man City will be travelling to the Ukraine to face Dynamo Kiev before returning to Manchester in a few weeks' time. Do you see City managing to make their first quarter final? I think ever, if I'm not mistaken, especially in Champions League history anyway, or can another smaller or supposedly smaller team cause a Premier League upset similar to what happened to Arsenal last year with Olympiacos?
Uh, yeah, I'll take the upset. I think 2-1, 2-1 for Kiev. Mainly because of the travel that City has to do. And yeah, so I think Kiev will maybe get 1 or 2 goals at home, and City, they'll be pressured to perform out in Manchester. So yeah, the one upset I'm gonna pick.
Okay.
Well, I've already picked my upset, so I'm gonna go safe side on this one. I'm gonna take City. I feel like, I mean, are a great team, but I don't think they're any match for Aguero, Silva, and Yaya. I think City takes it 3-1.
And the final tie of the round sees Ghent face off against Wolfsburg. So, what do you guys quickly think is going to happen in that one, and what's the final outcome?
There's one more. There's Benfica versus Zenit also.
Oh yeah,
For Ghent, Wolfsburg, I don't, I don't even know. Neither of them are really better than the other, I guess. But I'll take Wolfsburg, maybe 2-1, just because they play in a more difficult league.
Yeah, I mean, Ghent were able to beat Zenit in the round of 16 in the last match, but that's because they would needed to get those points. But I think Julian Draxler and Lord Bentner will take Wolfsburg to the final eight.
and what's the score?
I would say 2-0, actually. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And sorry, Fran's rightfully correcting me there. We do have one final tie to discuss: Benfica versus Zenit. So again, travelling to Russia, difficult. Maybe not so much for a Portuguese team, although it is still quite a long way. We always talk about it in England being difficult to go to kind of the Eastern Bloc countries. But who do you guys see winning this one, and what do you think the score will be?
Uh, this one's another toss-up, but I think just the travel that going to the cold Russia has to do. We'll see Zenit pull off a 2-1 boring scoreline. Yeah, I think Hulk and company will really take advantage of the fact that Benfica might be a little tired when playing in Russia.
Yeah, I think Benfica is probably the weakest they've been in a long time, and Zenit are just amazing this year. The group stage was just phenomenal for them. Like I said, they only lost the one game to Ghent, but that was already after they qualified, and they blew away all the other five opponents. And I don't think this game is even going to be close. I think they win 4-0.
Big call from me here to see how the scores. So just looking down those, I mean, you all see PSG, both see PSG going through, both see Barcelona going through, both see Real going through. Although Fons, you were thinking it might be slightly closer than it first perceived. Again, Atletico will be going through. Man City possibly not, according to Fons. While Juve possibly not, or sorry, Bayern possibly not from me here. So upsets definitely picked, and there usually always is an upset at this stage of the tournament. It's difficult to see one of the big three or big four teams going out, but you never know. So then, kind of the final eight that you guys have just chosen, of each your own final eight, may as well ask the question now as it gets down to the nitty-gritty of the tournament. Who do you see as kind of having the inside track to the Champions League title this year? Will Barca repeat, or do you see somebody else kind of taking the glory and ensuring that record of no Champions League repeat champions is still intact?
I think Barca's going to pull it off. I mean, I just think the firepower is too much. Even the midfielders like Rakitic is scoring goals now, and like you never really saw that in the old Barca teams. So I think everybody's the free for all for them. And if it's not Barca, just so that I have a backup pick, and I can say that I had a backup pick if they won. I'll take Bayern. They probably want to send Pep off with a nice consolation gift.
Yeah, I mean, you already know who I'm going to pick for my the first pick. Obviously, Barcelona they've been just rolling through their games of recent, and MSN and Rakitic and the emergence of Arda Turan has been huge for them, especially this late in the year when all the players kind of give out. The older players, Iniesta. In the midfield, Sergio Busquets. So, the new players that came in after the January window was a great addition for Barca, but I don't think there's any team that can get close to them. I see PSG making the final on the other side because they have absolutely nothing to worry about in their French campaign. So, up by 24 points, and they have no competition whatsoever in sight. So, I think they can make it through to the finals.
Yeah, it seems like a fairly obvious pick this year. It's one of those ones where you thought Real looked built to make a run again, and then Barca kind of emerged with that front three that's been terrorising people for the last year and a half. So you kind of do see them built to go more, and I'm not surprised by either of those picks. Interesting at Bayern as well, Fons, obviously with them sending Jupp Heynckes off with his own Champions League on retiring. Maybe they do the same for Pep when he moves on. But that's really it from all of us. Talked about a lot today. It was another good podcast. I'd like to thank both Mahir and Fons for joining me. And we'll look to probably do another one. So watch this space for the Champions League Final 8 and maybe another look around at what's going on in the Premier League once some of the title race becomes clearer. So thanks very much again to both you guys. And until next time, I've been Peter Benson. Bye.